Okay, you guys, we'll now start back with problem 15-4A or problem 14-4A, depending on which textbook you're working out of. Either way, we're looking at 19 measures of solvency and profitability. We'll start back with inventory turnover. Now your formula there in the top is cost of goods sold, and we're going to divide that by average inventory. Well, we'll pick up cost of goods sold as the current year number or 2016 number from the balance sheet, or excuse me, the income statement. What am I saying? 500,000 cost of goods sold on the 2016 income statement. And then we're going to divide by average inventory. Well, the way we'll take the average, again, you guys, we'll take the amount at the beginning of the year or the amount at the end of 2015 and add that to the amount at the end of 2016. Add the two numbers together and divide by 2 to get the average. So inventory at the end of 2015 was 58,000 plus inventory at the end of 2016 was 67,000. We're going to add those two together and divide by 2. And we get 62,500 for average inventory. That's divided into cost of goods sold. So what that tells us on a given, what that tells us is how many times during the year did we sell what we had in inventory and get new inventory in. 8 times during the year. Well, you guys, you want to turn that over as many times as possible, so you'd rather see that go up to 10 than down to 6, right? You want to sell your current inventory and get new inventory in as many times as possible during the year. If you divide 8 into 365 days, let me punch that in my calculator. It's 40 something, I think. 365 days in the year divided by we're turning over inventory 8 times. That means we're selling our current inventory and getting new inventory in about every 45 days. Not too bad. You guys, a company can get 8 might be really good for a company, 8 might be really poor for some other companies. What it depends on is how much is your markup. And we'll get to that in just a second. If your markup is really high, then you can turn over inventory fewer times during the year and still be profitable. If your markup or margin is really low, then you have to turn over inventory lots of times to be profitable during the year. So for instance, a jewelry store could get by with low inventory turnover because every time they sell a piece of jewelry, the markup is really high. On the other hand, a grocery store, their markup is really low, so they have to turn over inventory numerous times during the year to be profitable. Okay, number of days sales and inventory. This is just an average figure. So in the top, they kind of tells you on a given day how many days worth of sales do we have in inventory. So in the top, we've got average inventory. Again, to get average inventory, we take the inventory at the end of 2015, which was 58,000. I know we have it here, but let's punch it in again. The inventory at the end of 2016 is 67,000. We're going to add those two together and divide by 2. It's a 62,500 for average inventory, and we're going to divide that by average daily cost of goods sold. Well, cost of goods sold was 500,000. If we want the average daily amount, we divide it by 365. So there's an average day of sales at cost. Here's an average day of sales at the sales price. So their markup is pretty high, more than 100%, right? So they can get by turning over inventory 8 times during the year with a markup this high. I'm going to say that's pretty good, really good actually. Hope that makes sense. Here's their average day at the sales price, average day of sales at the sales price. Here's their average day of sales at cost. So their markup is quite a bit, right? Well, we can calculate that. $32.88. Let's punch it in. $32.88 minus $13.70. $1,980 markup. And divided by 32.88. So the markup is 58% of sales. So for every actually we'd want to divide that by the 1378. So their markup is 140% of cost. Okay. And what does this number tell us? 45.6. On a given day during the year, we're holding enough inventory to cover 45.6 days worth of sales. Okay, the next one is ratio of fixed assets to long-term liabilities. So in the top, we're going to have our fixed assets, or I think we've called it a lot of times property, plant, and equipment. At the net amount, that means the accumulated depreciation has been deducted out. And we're going to divide that by long-term liabilities. Okay, we'll go to the balance sheet for these numbers. They don't call, on the balance sheet, they call it property, plant, and equipment at the net amount rather than fixed assets. For 2016, that's $1,320,000. Divided by long-term liabilities. Total long-term liabilities were $1,100,000. That says 1.2. You guys, we're comparing these two because normally we're probably purchasing property, plant, and equipment with long-term debt. So could we sell our property, plant, and equipment and pay off the debt associated with it? And here we could, and have 20% left over. Okay, next we have ratio of liabilities. You guys, you'd like to see this one be higher if possible. Let's go back to this number of days sales and inventory. It depends there on what you're selling. Would you like that to be higher or lower? Now, if you're a manufacturing business and we're talking about raw materials inventory, you don't want to carry many days worth of sales there because of spoilage and things could be damaged, that kind of thing. But a lot of times you have to have a fairly large selection, otherwise customers don't come in. I mean, you're not going to go new car shopping at the new car lot that only has 3 cars to choose from, for instance. They have lots of cars, so a new car lot's going to have lots of days of sales in inventory. Some places would have to do that in order to have enough selection to draw customers. This one's kind of tricky. Inventory turnover you want to be as high as possible. This one you'd like to be higher as well. Ratio of liabilities to stockholders' equity. Okay, your formula there in the top is total liabilities, which we'll pick up from the balance sheet. Current year, $1,540,000. Divided by total stockholders' equity, which was $3,230,000. And that gives us 0.5. We'd like to see this one be lower. On that half of the balance sheet, we want it to mainly be made up of stockholders' equity and as few of liabilities as possible. So we'd like to see that go down to 0.4 rather than up to 0.6. All right, the number of times our interest charges were earned. In the top, we want income before income tax plus interest expense. All right, income before income tax for 2016, we go to the income statement. The third number up from the bottom, $380,000. We're going to add to that interest expense. I'm sorry. I put it in the wrong place. See if I can ever get this corrected. Now let's undo. There we go. Alright, so this should be income before income taxes, $380,000 plus interest expense. And that's listed as other expense with interest in parentheses just above income before income tax. That's $66,000. And then we're going to divide by interest expense, which was $66,000. So how many times during the year are we earning what we're paying in interest? Well, 6.8 times. You'd like to see that be as high as possible. Number of times preferred dividends earned. All right, in the top, we're going to use net income for the current year, which was $300,000. Divided by our preferred dividends. There we'll go to the comparative retained earnings statement. Notice on the fourth row down it says deduct dividends, and then on preferred stock. For 2016, that number is $15,000. So we're earning those preferred dividends 20 times during the year. We'd like to see that one be as high as possible too. Okay, next we have ratio of sales to assets. In the top, we're going to include sales. We go to the income statement there. It's $1.2 million for 2016. And then in the bottom, we're going to divide by average total assets, but we're going to exclude long-term investments. We leave those out, you guys, because long-term investments in no way help us to generate more sales. Our other assets, we hope, do help us to generate more sales. So if we want average total assets, we'd add together last year's total assets and this year's and divide by 2. But before we do that, we have to back out long-term investments. So last year's current asset, or last year's total assets were $4,355,000 minus long-term investments were $2,200,000. Then we'll add total assets at the end of 2016, $4,770,000. $4,770,000. Except we have to subtract out long-term investments at the end of 2016 for $2,350,000. And we wanted to get the average, we'll divide that number by 2. So we get $2,287,500. That's average total assets excluding long-term investments. All that calculation for a half, right, or 0.5. You guys, we want sales to be as high as possible given the level of assets. So we'd like to see that one go up to 0.6 rather than down to 0.5. Rate earned on total assets is our next one. And that ratio of sales to assets started with our profitability measures. The ones 1 through 11 were all solvency measures or liquidity measures. Okay, we're now again on rate earned on total assets. In the top, we've got net income plus interest expense. So that's $300,000 is our net income. Plus interest expense is that other expense with interest in parentheses. That's $66,000. And then we're going to divide by average total assets. Okay, so that's equal to total assets at the end of 2015, $4,355,000. Plus total assets at the end of 2016, $4,770,000. We're going to add those two together and divide by 2. And we get $4,562,500 as average total assets. Remember, this one was average total assets with long-term investments backed out. And notice they show that one as a percentage. Anytime it says rate earned, we're going to show those as a percentage. And of course, you guys, we'd like that to go up to 9. So 9% would be better than 7. All right, rate earned on stockholders' equity. Okay, there your formula is net income in the top, which is $300,000. And then we're going to divide by average total stockholders' equity. All right, total stockholders' equity at the end of 2015 is $2,955,000. Total stockholders' equity at the end of 2016 is $3,230,000. We're going to add those two together and divide by 2. Our average total stockholders' equity is $3,092,500, which means our rate earned on stockholders' equity is 9.7%. On these rate earned, you guys, you want to see those be as high as possible. And I'll tell you what, we'll pick up with 15, probably on through 19 in the next video. Okay, thanks a lot.